You know, Arpin, I know how you like to have a beverage once in a while, and I'm thinking of you
Never.
since you are in Utah, in Salt Lake City, and is it a dry town? The part of town where you are?
Not at all. It gets a bad rap. I actually arrived quite late last night on what day are we? On Sunday night. Sorry.
We're Monday, January 13th. Hello, everybody.
Yes, hello. Arrived quite late Sunday night. Got to my hotel at around 11 p.m. local time. So we're in Mountain Time here in Salt Lake, and I hadn't eaten because I had a really quick connection in Chicago. Didn't have time to get some food. I got some like snacks on the plane or whatever, but I was really hungry and managed to find. And I was thinking this city closes down at like 10:30 and I'm not going to be able to get anything. I'm going to have to eat, I'm going to have to order pizza or something crappy. But no, found a lovely place. They had a late night menu that they served food until 1 a.m. They had this insane selection of whiskey, which I resisted trying. Just had a beer with my braised beef tacos at like 11:30 at night and went to bed very satisfied and very happy. And so whenever you think of Salt, I haven't been here enough to know, but just that my one experience in Salt Lake City has already debunked something that I thought of Utah in general. It was a very normal. There were people out on a Sunday night, very late. And yeah, it was great. And so I'm looking, it's beautiful. Like now I can actually see the city and it's just surrounded by mountains. You're half an hour away from world-class ski destinations. And so heading over to the rink a little later today when the Canadiens hit the ice for practice here. But yeah, looks, it was a shame that I arrived so late at night because I couldn't get the full appreciation of the scenery around here, but I'm getting it this morning. It's quite beautiful here.
Would you say that it's the closest thing to Denver, maybe in the NHL, in terms of?
Well, Denver, you're still kind of far. You're relatively far from the mountains in Denver. You're there, but you can't. It's not there. Like here, it's more like Vancouver in the sense that they are really glued up against the mountains here. Like it's really like Park City, Utah is a half-hour drive away.
Okay.
There's like 4 or 5 ski resorts within a 30-minute drive, and so you're really on the foothills of the Rocky Mountains here, whereas Denver, you're a little bit removed from the mountains that you can't really, you can see them in the city, but they're not in your face. Here, they're right there. So it's quite, I'm looking forward to kind of walking around later on and taking in the sights. I want to go check out, they have the Temple Square here, which is where sort of Brigham Young and the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and all the Mormons and all that stuff. So I'm going to go check that out a bit later on. But first, we have a chat, and then we got to go. I got to go watch the Canadiens skate around in circles, and then I get to do that.
Very good. So this Tourism Minute was brought to you by the Basu and Godin Notebook.
State of Utah.
Yeah,
visit Utah, everyone. We're more than just
So listen, before we get into what's ahead, maybe a look back at the last 2 games that the Canadiens have played since we last spoke. So they a rather gutsy win in Washington, but to a certain extent, I would say almost a gutsier shootout loss against Dallas. I wrote that it looked as though, even though they were playing at the Bell Center, it looked like a road game for the Montreal Canadiens, the way they played. But they really grinded it out and emptied the tank in order to get a point. Yeah, I remember at some point during the game, you late in the game in the third period, you said, "Oh, they're really playing to get to overtime, just to go get at least that 1 point and see after if magic could happen and they could get that second point." But it was clearly an objective, saying if we can get 1 point out of this, it will already be good.
Well, that was Montreal's 4th straight overtime game, right? So, or that was their 4th straight overtime period, I should say. And Nick Suzuki was riding a 2-game overtime goal streak. So playing for overtime wasn't stupid. And listen, there were just
Yeah.
there were all these circumstances. You know, you're playing. Let's be honest, you're playing a better team. A team that had been sleeping in Montreal since Thursday night for a Saturday night game. You were a team that was in Washington, a game that went to overtime. Plane trouble after the game. You didn't get into Montreal till like 2 a.m. Didn't get to bed till like 3 a.m. You know, and still on. This is the crazy thing. I mean, and it continues on this trip, but it was their 13th straight game that required travel.
Yeah.
They have not, since they haven't played consecutive home games since December 9th and December 12th. They have played their last 13 games like they needed to travel to their game, even for the home games they've played in that period. So there's just a lot of tired in their body, you know, like even though, and so all that considered, you know, when Marty said after the game that we played an intelligent third period, like that's playing for overtime was the intelligent thing to do. And they did that, you know, they chipped pucks out of their zone. They chipped pucks in and changed quickly when they could, and really didn't give up a whole lot in that third period and earned the point and got to a coin flip, got to a shootout, you know, and even they had their chances to win. Cole Caulfield rings one off the post in overtime. Like they had their chances to win it. And in overtime, they went for it. It's not like they hang, you know, you can't really hang back in 3-on-3, but they went for that win. And so they really played it. They gave themselves the best chance to get the 2 points against not only a strong team, but against a whole litany of unfavorable circumstances. But, you know, mature teams, smart teams, they take all that into consideration and they let it dictate how you approach a game. And if there's one thing this team has shown is that it's maturing at a pretty alarming rate, I would say.
Yeah. It's when you look at, you mentioned the 3-on-3 and how they went for it. There was a concern 2-3 years ago that the NHL and the coaches especially were killing 3-on-3 hockey with the way that they were approaching it, and it was all of a sudden becoming extremely defensive or at least, you know, tentative and waiting for the right opportunity. And there is some of it, but I find that there is it has not been killed. There's the quality of the show and how dynamic it can be. It's still very much in the game. We saw it against Dallas on Saturday. It's much more the shootout. Caden Gooley repeated after the game more than once. He said, "We lost in a skills competition," with a slight disdain in his voice, as if, you know.
He said he would rather play 30 minutes of overtime than to play a shootout.
Yeah, players don't like that. To be, the outcome of a game to be determined that way. Obviously, there are some CBA issues that come with it because you're playing. How many more minutes are you going to play in order to decide a winner? You got to draw the line somewhere, and I understand it. But
it's mainly the top guys that are going to play. That's the thing. For
sure. Yeah.
It's over the course of a season. It's those top players that add a lot of miles. If you go to 10 minutes, but
right. So in these, just quick numbers regarding the back-to-back games. Last season, the Canadiens had 13 back-to-backs, 13 sequences of two games and 2 nights. And overall, their record was 7-15-4. And on the second game of the back-to-back, they only had 1 win out of 13 games. So this year, they are overall 10-4-2 so far in their 8 back-to-backs. And on the second game of the back-to-back, they're 5-2-1, which is pretty darn impressive. You talk about maturity. Well, managing your energy, managing the game, having also a goalie that helps you out in that matter on how to rest guys, communicate properly between the players and the goalie to say, okay, if there's a puck coming at me slowly, do I put my glove on it and hope for a whistle and wait for a whistle, or do I pass it back? You know, I think that there's there's great game management going on there. So
Mhm.
and it shows in the way that they're playing those back to backs.